and he's been open about his priorities, including personal matters and a desire to join a team that wants him and has a strong chance of winning. Rodgers discussed his split from the Jets with Pat McAfee yesterday and what that in-person meeting was like with new head coach Aaron Glenn.
I think we're going to have this long conversation. I've flown across the country, and 20 seconds in, he goes, literally, I'm talking to the GM about something, and he leans to the edge of his sheet and goes, "So do you want to play football?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And he said, "We're going a different direction at quarterback." And I said, and I was kind of shocked. Now, not shocked because I didn't think that was a possibility. Listen, of course, they want to move on. That's totally fine. But shocked because I just flew across country. You could have told me this on the phone. If we weren't even going to have a conversation, and this is verbatim exactly how it happened. So I said, "Huh?" And he goes, "We just want to know how you want it released, the messaging." And I said, "Why?" And then he said, "I don't want to be up in front of the room saying something and have guys looking back at you."
Interesting.
And I said, "What does that even mean? Are you assuming that I would be in the back of the room during a team meeting undermining what you're saying?" I said, "You don't know me." And he said, "You don't know me." And then I said, "Exactly," which is why I flew across the country to have a face-to-face meeting with you to talk about my experience with the Jets and to hear your vision for the team. 20 seconds in. What I thought was going to be a couple-hour meeting turned into like a 15-minute meeting.
All right, I got to call an audible on this. Hi, guys. Welcome back. And Stephen A., I'm going to start with you because just listening to that sound again, what I found interesting, and I'm genuinely asking you this. So Aaron felt insulted that he flew all the way across the country, right, to get that 20-second answer. And when he asked him, do you want to play football for the Jets? He said, "I'm interested." So it wasn't like, "Yes, I absolutely want to," just "I'm interested," which is a little vague and not all in. But Stephen A., do you think it would be more disrespectful had he not had that conversation about releasing him in person and had done it over the phone?
Well, no, I don't. I'm in a minority here because I get where Aaron Rodgers is coming from. I'm wishing nothing but the best for Aaron Glenn. I think he was the right coach for the job. Mike T, I know that I think the reports are correct. You were a part of the, helping Woody Johnson with the search. Great job on your part. I think he's the right coach for the job. I think that Aaron Glenn, I really, really believe that he's going to do an outstanding job, and I get that part. But with all the things that have been said about Aaron Rodgers, when are we going to get to a point where we say it's a touch unfair? I understand he brings a lot on himself. I get that part. But on so many occasions, people's contribution to the game, this dude has been in 5 NFC championship games. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a 4-time league MVP. Only Peyton Manning has won more league MVPs than him. And I understand that the struggles that have occurred recently with the New York Jets, he doesn't get to get absolved from them. He wanted to call his shots, and he goes to New York, and they let him bring Nathaniel Hackett with them, and he's the face of the franchise. But his very first year there, he gets hurt the 4th play into the season. The 4th play, not the 4th game, the 4th play, and tears his Achilles. So he really only had 1 year there. He's coming off a torn Achilles injury, okay? And even though it was a down year, and we know that about Aaron Rodgers, okay? By the way, he struggled a couple of years in Green Bay before he got to the New York Jets. I'm not losing all of that. Yeah. But we look at him, he still threw for nearly 4,000 yards. He still threw 28 touchdowns. He's still done more than any Jets quarterback has done in recent memory. And all he was talking about, he wasn't talking about your decision. He was saying, "Damn, I flew all the way here on my own dime from Cali. It's a 6-hour flight. You couldn't have told me that over the phone? And, 2 minutes in, you telling me we going in a different direction? You couldn't have just called and told me that? Why you have to fly me out here?" And so I'm looking at people going off, and they're looking at the New York Jets like they're right, and they want to bring up all of this stuff about Aaron Rodgers. The principle is simple, y'all. The man flew across the country for something that you could have told him over the phone. He said 2 minutes in. He said you didn't have a conversation.
No, Stephen, and I get what you're saying, and Mike T, I'm going to come to you because obviously you've been a part of these conversations, but you could argue both ways. You could argue that it's more disrespectful and dismissive to do it over the phone. And the other thing about meeting in person, and I know Aaron was insulted by it, but he was saying, hey, we're having this exit, this split up, this divorce. He wanted to discuss the messaging to let Aaron be comfortable with it and be shown in a positive light.
Can I respond to that before you go to Mike T?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, I feel like that's a sign of respect. Okay, as a unit together, even though we've separated, how are we putting this out to the masses?
But
and
Molly,
I don't know if I want to do that over the phone.
Hold on, Molly. Then why didn't you fly out there?
That's fair.
Why you? That's my point.
100% fair. You're right.
But that's my point. In other words, it doesn't matter what. It's like to have him fly out on his own dime.
Yeah.
Not that that's a big deal because of the money he's making, but you have him fly out there on his own dime to 2 minutes in telling him we're moving in a different direction.
Mike?
Yeah.
Why didn't you fly out there to tell him?
Yeah. So look, context here is really important. I've been on both sides of really hard conversations in my career, and every year when you're running a team, you're cutting 37 people. It's never easy. There's no textbook right way of doing it. But I agree with what Molly just said, Stephen. From this standpoint, if we were sitting here today and Aaron Rodgers goes on Pat McAfee and said, you know what, the Jets called me. They couldn't even look me in the eye. Then, we'd be talking about how come they didn't meet in person. And if you remember, when he left the Packers, there was all the whole thing of they try to call, but people know you can only FaceTime me because I don't get good reception. So it's been very noisy. These conversations aren't easy. I do think, to Molly's point, that, hey, let's get on the same page so we can exit this relationship in the most appropriate way possible. And look, I was part of hiring Aaron Glenn. I think he's going to do great. I've known him for 28 years as a player, as a scout, and now as a head coach. He made what to me was the right decision, not the easy one. That really is the headline. They picked Justin Fields, which right now looks like I'm really intrigued to see how well he could do in New York. And they closed the chapter. And I think part of it, from a human nature standpoint, just to be candid, is an iconic player was told by a new head coach and a new GM, we're not interested. And I'm sure that stung Aaron Rodgers. He's human. He heard from his boss they no longer wanted him. So maybe part of what he was saying was, boy, that really hurt me. That was disappointing to hear that I was no longer wanted.
Mike T, I usually don't agree with you, but Stephen A., you're wrong on this topic, and I agree with Mike T. You look at this for Aaron Rodgers, yes, did he have to fly across the country? I think the biggest point is what Molly just said. Whether it's on the phone, whether it's in person, there are going to be complaints. At the end of the day, he comes into that meeting. Why would Aaron Glenn want to get to know Aaron Rodgers if they've already made the decision to move on? If you're Aaron Rodgers, I don't want to sit and talk to you for hours if you already know that my services are no longer needed for this organization. Yeah. It sucks to be told, especially when you've reached the level of Aaron Rodgers. I never got to that point, so I don't know what it feels like. I do know what it feels like to be cut. And when you're sitting across from somebody and you don't feel like you get to argue your point or give your perspective of why the product on the field was the way it was, why they are moving on, then yes, you do feel like it was a disservice done to you. So I understand his feelings, but that doesn't make the Jets wrong. I look at this situation. If you're a Jets fan and you heard what Aaron Rodgers had to say yesterday, you're fired up. You're like, finally, they've made a decision and they've run with it and they're not looking back. Yes, the Aaron Rodgers era came in with a lot of hope, and some of it wasn't Aaron Rodgers' fault. But at the end of the day, they're in a position now with a new general manager, with a new head coach, with a new quarterback. We're moving forward, and we are not interested in what the quarterback of last year has to say about our franchise.
I love what you just said. Because, Stephen A., what are they going to have a conversation about? Then it's just being phony and fake. We both know we're going in different directions. But it gives him the opportunity. No, but I'm saying it gives him the opportunity that if he did want to explain himself, Aaron Rodgers, he can now do it sitting down face to face with this gentleman. And if someone said to you, hey, Stephen A., do you want to be on First Take? And you said, I'm interested. Like, what? That's dismissive and disrespectful as well as an answer.
We're not absolving Aaron Rodgers for his role in anything. We're talking about a bigger picture. Everybody on this television right now has been a part of negotiations. It's not just about the money. It's about how things are handled. I can tell you that for a fact. I just finished going through a very lengthy negotiation. I can tell you for a fact, money is important, but that's only one component. There are other things that come along with it. Respect does matter. And what I'm saying to you is that I'm not debating the part about calling him on the phone compared to looking him in the face.